go to save the child, the man tells you to stop as he was told it was for the greater good, but he doesn't know what that is. Do you continue to save the child?
Who's the man?
He's just some guy that's nearby.
Well, no, I would say that has no relation to morality within this, hypothetical.
Yeah, you just continue to save the child. I believe most people would. And then, is it an act of justice to punish people for crimes they did not commit and had nothing to do with?
No, that is injustice.
Okay. So, I guess the audience isn't really engaging. So I want to get this more into the objective moral category. And these are the next questions, where it'd be, are morals objective?
I mean, yes, there are objective morals, yeah.
And there's objective moral duties?
Yes, for agents.
And it'd be immoral not to do an objective moral duty?
For an agent to not do a moral duty or an objective moral duty, I would concede yes.
And it would be an objective moral duty to save a drowning person if you have sound mind and can do it with no risk to yourself?
For moral agents, yep.
And would it be objectively immoral to punish someone for a crime they did not commit and had nothing to do with?
Objectively, yes.
Does God do the objective moral duties?
God is not a moral agent.
In what way is God not a moral agent?
So within the worldview of that God is the creator, the essence of the framework, he is not obligated to follow the objective imperatives created by his nature.
Are these objective imperatives?
Well, you're calling it an imperative, right? If it's objective, therefore you're saying it must be done. It's an ought, correct?
Basically, yeah, I think the definition of objective would do that.
Right, but I'm saying there's a distinction between an ought and an is. God is, therefore God ought not do anything.
So God is, but is he doing the duty though? Like, can he do it, or does he lack that ability?
No, he does not lack ability. So within his nature, or within his essence is active, right? However, within his nature, which is what we consider to be a proactive or participatory nature of God, he can do things.
So he's got the ability to do it. He knows that they're doing it, right? He knows when somebody's drowning.
Yes.
So why does he not have the duty like everybody else?
Because he's outside of the moral framework, right? Created within the universe.
But I thought these were objective. I don't understand being outside of an objective thing. It's like being outside of a fact.
Well, why don't you define what objectivity is to you?
It's true, no matter who you are, what you believe in, a mind-independent fact.
Right. Does God have a mind? But you can see that God has a mind.
I think, okay, kind of bouncing into questions on my cross-exam, but yeah, I think God has a mind.
Okay, would you say it's dependent on his will? So I'll refrain from questions. I'll use it for later.
I'm gonna say let's keep it to Smokratees questions for now.
Yeah, like it still doesn't make sense to me that just because he's outside, he doesn't have to do this. And the question for that would be, is God omnipresent?
Well, yes.
So how is he outside, but he's also everywhere? Meaning he'd be inside as well.
So, okay, let me ask you this, or let me answer in this way, right? If I create a system, right, and the system is part of my nature, right? It's an expression of self. Am I obligated to do anything of the laws and regulations I created myself within said system?
If you say they're objective, I believe so.
Well, they're objective within the system, yes.
Am I in the system?
You are in the system. I am in the system, but God is outside of the system.
But isn't he inside as well as omnipresent, right?
Well, yes, I could say he's omnipresent for sure. I don't see what the contention is here, right? Because I can know and I can be in all things if I'm a system. I created a system.
Well, what do you think omnipresent means?
Everywhere, all times.
Yeah. But you're saying that this omnipresent being isn't present inside the system?
No, I didn't say that. I said he's both present outside and inside the system, correct?
Okay, so if he's inside the system, why does he not have this duty? You're saying that he doesn't have it because he's outside the system.
Well, within the system, he acts on God's nature, correct?
When he's inside the system?
Right. So his nature is things that are within the system, right? We see it through divine revelation inside the system. And those things are good. They are of God's will. But outside of the system, he's not obligated.
So, but he's in the system, right? We've agreed there. And,
Yes.
And when he's in the system, he does have these obligations.
Sorry, hold on. Rephrase that question.
So when he's in the system, he does have these obligations, just like everybody else.
If he was always within the system at all times, yes, I would say he's obligated, but he's not. He's outside of the system as well.
Well, I thought he's omnipresent. When is he not part of the system?
He is both inside and outside at all times.
Yeah, so he's inside at all times, right?
Well, you know, I said inside and outside.
So he's not always inside?
And that's not what I said either.
Well, I'm very confused in what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand. This seems very confusing that he's inside and outside all times, but he's...
So let me answer in this way.
Is he not inside at that time?
Is he a man?
No.
Does he have to follow? Okay, so if he's not a man, right, then does he have to follow the same laws of physics, right? So he can be both inside and outside, and there's no contention there, is he? So you're trying to make a point of saying, well, he has to be within the system at all times or outside the system at both times. I'm refusing that fact. I don't concede to that point. I say both. He's inside and outside the system at all times.
Well, no, I'm just asking questions, and I'm getting very conflicting answers.
Well, why do you presuppose that he ought be inside the system at all times and not outside the system at all times?
Because you agreed that he was omnipresent.
Yes, but that means both, does it not?
Yeah.
So he can be inside and outside. So his nature within the framework is a certain way, which is a reflection of the essence of God that is outside of the framework, correct?
But we're talking about the duties about when he's inside, right?
Right, but why should God do anything?
Well, why should I be answering your questions during my cross exam?
Right,
Yeah,
I'm saying he
is-
ought not. I'm saying God doesn't have an ought, he's an is.
But you agree he can do these things, right?
He could.
And he knows that they're happening and everything. Just why is he not doing them then?
Well, why? Again, I'm saying the same thing. Why ought God? He is an is.
Well, I don't see answering my question with a question like this is an answer to my question.
Well, it's circular in nature, I understand, but God is the grounding of our moral framework. Therefore, God ought to neither, right? You can't derive an ought from an is.
I'm just trying to ask some questions to understand how this objective morality from this God works. And I'm getting like he's in the system. I never said he's out of the system either.
Right, but I did.
Yeah.
I firmly claim.
Well, but it seems weird to say he's in the system at all times and out of the system at all times, but then be the reason that he doesn't have the moral obligation is because he's outside the system. But he's also
Right. So
inside the system, right?
right. So we have a distinction between essence and nature. The nature of God is within the system. The essence of God is outside of the system. Right.
Okay.
Right. So God being the essence of God, being outside, which is the is, ought not do anything within the framework, right? All that's within the framework is the nature of God. The things that we find comprehensible, things that we can see through divine revelation, things what he's told to us, right?
Okay.
So we have a different distinction of what God is, right? So for me, God is outside of the framework in essence, but in nature, right, he shows us the aspects and attributes of God within the moral framework or within the system.
Okay.
We've got
I
18
just-
minutes left of this cross exam if you want to move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm still not seeing the connection of how this gets him out of these objective moral duties. Like, what
Well,
do you think objective means?
you're presupposing that as a subject, God is a subject, therefore God is a moral agent. I'm saying the essence of God is not a moral agent.
Well, why is he not a moral agent? That's what I'm
Because
asking. Like, what is?
moral agents are within the system. God is outside of the system. The
Well,
essence
see,
of
now you're
God
doing this again,
outside.
where God, he's outside, but he's also inside, isn't he?
He is within the nature.
Okay, well, why is he not doing something when he's inside as well?
Well, why should the ought be derived from the is?
But this is my question period. You don't get to ask me a question to my question. You need to explain your position.
Right, I understand, and I've explained it multiple times at this point, right? You cannot derive an ought from an is. That is fallacious argumentation. You know this to be true, right?
I'm just going off his own oughts.
Well, hold on. What are the oughts of God then?
Objective moral
This
duty.
is-
Save a drowned person if you can with no risk to yourself, right?
Yeah, but what if you don't know in any hypothetical question? We don't know as the subject, right? A moral agent. I don't know of the wants, the free will of the individual. So as a moral agent, I don't have the answer. Therefore, I ought to do what is best to the best of my ability, right? But God, knowing all things, has an answer. Knowing all things and being all present can know for a fact, right, whether something is morally good or morally bad. I don't. That's why I'm a moral agent. God is not.
So, if a person does drown, is it better that that person drowned?
Well, how would I view it as drowning is bad, right?
Well,
Because ultimately,
you're
I
asking
don't
a lot of
believe.
questions with the questions and asking me my moral stances when I'm asking for yours.
Yes, and I'm saying that I don't believe that drowning is inherently bad. I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, so when somebody does drown, was that
Mhm.
good then because God didn't save them?
Well, I would say that God did save them if they believed in a higher power and believed in God, were saved, and ultimately the goal is to be in heaven, correct? Within my worldview.
Yeah, but they're getting that anyway at the end of their life.
Well,
Everybody's
that's
going to
not,
die.
that's, yeah, everyone's going to die, but not everyone's going to go to heaven.
I agree. What if the person goes to hell?
Yeah, so what's the problem then?
Well, if this is objective moral duty,
Mhm.
where if I was there, I'd have to save this person, then it seems very odd for this duty to change because it's somebody else. Like it seems like saying 2
Uh,
plus 2 equals 4, but not always. In this
Wait.
situation, 8 equals 5.
No, but it doesn't change. It depends on the knowledge of everything around it, right? So within a certain, like, okay, within this framework and within this hypothetical, you're saying I, as a moral agent, must automatically know all possible outcomes, correct? I don't know
No.
all possible outcomes. So I am only able to act upon what is morally right, morally wrong to the best of my knowledge.
Right. And if I go by the
God,
best of my knowledge being what God told me, which is to save that person, right?
well, hold on. That's not true.
God didn't tell me to save drowning people.
Well, show me that.
Well, I think when he says to save lives, doesn't he?
Where?
Oh, I could probably find a Bible verse for this, I think. Does anybody else have one until I look this up, I guess?
I meant to do a 15-minute reminder, but this is a 13-minute reminder. So I missed that 15-minute mark.
John 15:13, lay down his life for his friends. And the spiritual
So hold on. So in this moment, right? If you lay down your life, is death bad?
This
Well,
is
yeah, I mean,
this is well, to be clear, this is Smokratees' cross-examination section. So
yeah, I would say it's bad. That's the whole point, is the sacrifice of it, right?
Okay.
And yeah, we need to get back to really what my questions are here. Because I think we left off with him being inside and outside, and the reason he doesn't have the duties is because he's outside with his nature, and I'm just not understanding that. That it doesn't seem objective to me. If you ask me, it seems divine command theory, which I'm totally willing to accept. In fact, if I read the Bible, it seems to be divine command theory to me. The word objective didn't even exist until like the 1700s or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
is it more divine command theory implied or objective morality implied?
So are you okay? So I would say we derive what moral objectivity is from the nature of God. Does it align with God's will?
Okay, but do you think it seems to be more like saying follow God's commands, or does it seem more to be saying morals are objective?
Oh, I'm saying that God's commands are objective.
Well, it doesn't really clearly say that. Like the word objective didn't even exist until the 1700s.
Right. And
So it seems like more to me it's saying follow God's commands. You're interpreting that as to be objective.
so objectivity is outside of and independent of self. Therefore, the commands given by God to me are objective to me, the subject. I cannot change them.
Well, objective is mind independent, right?
Dependent of the subject.
Well, mind independent is a big part of the definition of objective. I'm pretty sure that's what they're trying to get at with independent of a subject. There's no mind. Like, true no matter who you are, a mind independent fact.
Okay.
And is this dependent on God's mind?
No, it's
These
dependent on the
objective
nature of
rules that are
God.
coming from him?
So it's objective as in the sense that like within the essence, we can derive that the objectivity comes from the essence of God, right? And it's shown to us through the nature of God's will. Right?
10-minute warning.
If it aligns with God, then it is morally good. If it does not align with God, it is not moral, it is immoral. It does not change on the subject, therefore I cannot change. No matter how much I prefer a specific action or I prefer an outcome, is independent of my personal preference. Therefore, It is objective to me as the moral agent.
Okay. So these objective moral rules that we've gotten from God, have they ever changed over time?
No.
So the rules in Leviticus about buying slaves from the nations around you and being able to bequeath them to your children for they are your property, is that still objectively moral?
So when we talk about the slaves in Leviticus, it is telling us how we ought within the system that currently exists to most morally and most well treat those slaves, right? That was the system created by the world and how to act upon the system of the world.
So where did it say that we no longer need to abide by that? And isn't that an example of it changing over time?
Well, no, because God didn't command us to take slaves, did he?
Well, he said that it's okay to buy them.
Yeah,
And
within
actually,
the
in some, isn't he telling them to you could take the virgin women, kind of slaves of war?
Mhm.
I think this is a clear example of a changing. Don't you agree?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that God changed anything. Objectively,
So-
you should treat, hold on. So objectively, we should be treating every individual in a specific way. How we treat the slaves within the system that was current of the day doesn't change, right? We treat them with, honorably, right? With respect, right? Within the framework. And on top of that, the slaves at that time, buying and selling of slaves was like more like indentured servitude, right? Somebody could sell themselves as a slave to their neighbor if they couldn't pay a debt, right?
But it
Was
says
that
you can
immoral?
bequeath them to your children as property. And there's even rules if you have a slave and and you give him a wife and they have children, he can owl his ear to be a slave for life.
Yeah, but there's also a framework of when their slaves were supposed to be set free.
Only for Hebrew slaves. You
Okay.
find me that where it's for any of the others.
But what's wrong with that?
Because it's chattel slavery. It's ownership of people as property.
But who said that that's bad?
I'm reminding that this is Smokratees' cross-examination section.
Yeah.
I would think that a good chunk of humanity agrees that's pretty bad. I think it's bad. Do you not think owning people as property is bad?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, maybe bark up that tree a little later.
Oh, we will.
Okay. I'm still wondering when it becomes from divine command theory to objective morality. I think you'd avoid this whole problem and just say divine command theory. Where did this idea of objective morality get put in? When did that get onto everything? Onto morality?
Well, objective meaning outside of the moral agency of the individual subject. It's just kind of a given, don't you think? Just because we don't have a term for it doesn't mean that it didn't exist prior to.
Well, I'd agree, but when do you think that it became an objective thing? When do you think we started really saying that?
Well, again, I don't think it matters when we came up with the term.
Oh, okay.
5-minute warning.
Yeah. I think I'll just concede my 5 minutes. I'll wait for the next 15 minutes. Rather have some questions first, so I got some things to work with.
Are we doing another 30-minute section or?
Yeah, Admiral's turn, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe it is.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Your 30 minutes will start as soon as you start asking questions.
All right, so I'm gonna go based off of one of the last questions you asked right there, right? You said slave owning is bad, right? Why?
I think owning people as property definitely isn't fair treatment. And I think fairness plays a huge part in our morality, our laws, our behaviors, and unfairness creates conflict. And that would definitely be one of those things creating conflict.
Okay, so you said fairness by our morality, right? So if I believe, right, then I'm a Muslim, and I believe it's okay to own slaves, right, at some point in time, and to take people as slaves, and it's within my worldview. Is it wrong for me to own slaves?
Yeah, doesn't seem
What?
very fair.
Well, hold on. Why is it not fair? Who's it not fair to?
The slave,
Okay, why is it not fair to the slave?
because they're treated as a commodity. They're not even treated as a human being anymore. It's a possession.
Okay, so if I was to say that said slave was incapable of fending for themselves and was at the verge of starvation, would it not be better for the slave to be owned and fed and housed and sheltered and prolong their life?
Sure, maybe.
Right. So right there, if you can see to that fact, then objectively, it's not bad, or it can't be bad for that slave in that individual sense where they potentially could die, right? It couldn't be bad for them, right? They potentially would live longer.
Sure.
Right. So if something's fair and it's just dependent on life, would you say that, self-preservation is moral?
Well, yeah, we definitely try to preserve life. Yeah.
Okay, so should we derive all morality from self-preservation, right? I should do whatever is in my best interest to prolong my life, and that is what's most moral.
Within limits, you can't be like hindering on other people's humanity and stuff in order to do your own, right?
Okay.
There is like limitations to where you can take that statement.
Okay. So is it immoral for me to take my own life through seppuku?
I would say so, but kind of gray area.
Wait,
I
hold
don't
on.
know.
Why is that a
I'm
gray
not a
area?
person who believes in that, so.
Wait, how can you say because you don't believe, right? But if I believe it's moral for me and honorable even for me to disembowel myself with a sword, right? And that is no longer right or wrong? How can that be? I thought it wasn't, if all morality is not objective, then how could you say that that's wrong?
Well, I have my subjective opinion.
Well, why is your subjective opinion better than their subjective opinion? How could you give an offer that?
Where did they say it was?
Okay, so if your subjective opinion, what is the basis of your subjective opinion? Where do you find or what influences your?
The way I think morality works is the mirror neurons give rise of empathy when we have understandings of situations, right? Like if I burn myself, I can feel that pain. That wasn't pleasant. I can tell when other people burn themselves, they feel a very similar type of pain to that. I can also tell when somebody had like lost a loved one, they can feel emotional pain from that. It's definitely unpleasant. If I lose a loved one, I get that same feeling. And we build these ideas with our empathy and feelings of how people like to be treated and how we want to be treated. And it basically does come down to the golden rule where it's just don't treat people like you would not want to be treated yourself.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say golden rule?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say that that is an objective truth then?
Not necessarily.
Well, then it's not the golden rule, is it? How could it possibly be the golden rule if not all people can accept the same fact?
I'm not saying like it's the golden rule as in this is the one rule. I'm just saying that's what that rule is usually called, right? To do unto others as do unto you,
Well, hold on. But no, if that's not objective, right, then I could just throw that entire concept out to begin with, right? And if I say, actually, you know what? I don't think I should do unto others as I should do myself. I should do whatever's in my best interest for self-preservation. Therefore, I should be able to go and steal from my neighbor. Why can't I do that?
Well, I mean, you can, but people are going to turn on you because...
Hold on, people? It's populist? Is your worldview based on populism? Okay, so if I live in 1940s Germany and the populace decides that Jews are bad and they are ending our economy and they are stealing our jobs and X, Y, and Z, and then I decide to round them all up as the best solution for the most people and gas them, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, and that's how those people got everybody together to agree to do that,
Right. But they
affecting their
all agreed.
beliefs so
They
that they
all
actually
agreed.
go and do abhorrent things, right?
Whoa. You can't even call it abhorrent because if it's
Oh,
not
I
objective,
can
then in
so.
their worldview, where the mass population, the populace decided that this is the best course of action, how could you say it's abhorrent?
Because I have my own subjective worldview,
Okay.
right?
You have a
And
so
you're
how
asking me, how do you feel about this? And I'm like, yeah, I think that's pretty fucking horrible.
right.
It's
So how do
really
you
not that hard, dude.
how do you value your subjective worldview against Nazi Germany's subjective worldview? How do you
Well, we'd have
value
to
it?
debate it,
How would you debate it? On what metrics?
like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, but what metric would you hold? What possible metric could you hold to say that the Nazis were wrong?
From the unfairness of that whole
Unfair. But
situation.
they saw it fair. What makes it
Then we
unfair?
would debate on whether that was actually fair, right?
Right, but wait. What makes something fair?
Whether it's like just, whether it's something that both people would be in agreement of happening, you know?
Okay, so if both people are in agreement, right, and I say, well, actually, I'm gonna sell myself as a slave to somebody, and I agree to it, is that wrong? Can I not sell myself as a slave?
If you want, if
Hold
you
on.
agree,
No. If I agree to it and I decided to sell myself as a slave to Anthony right now, right, for food, shelter, and like, medicinal care, anything like that, what's wrong with that?
if you agree to it, fine, dude, go for it. I don't care.
Okay, so now you don't care. So then it's not immoral to own a slave. So you saying it's
Well,
not immoral to own a
it's
slave?
a little different when it's like totally intentional
Well,
of the
no,
person,
it
right?
either is or it is not, is it not? It's either immoral to
No,
own a slave,
I'm
or is
not
it
the moral
substantial?
objectivist. I can change according to the situation. You're the guy who thinks that slavery is still moral.
Okay, so hold on. So again, it's not immoral to own a slave. Let me just get that right.
Well, it wasn't to you.
No, because I'm going based off of an objective truth, right?
I think somebody else capturing you and then these people selling you into slavery, I think that would be immoral. But when
Why?
you're sitting there, hey, I'll totally agree to be your slave. We'll lay out some conditions here, and I'm agreeing to this.
Yeah.
Then I see that as a completely different situation.
Would you
You
not say
understand the
that even
difference?
hold on,
All right, so sorry.
wait. So within that worldview, right, where they were taking the slaves, right? Would you not agree that all tribes were doing the same thing? Therefore, all people had an unwritten truth that was if you were the victor of a war, you could take slaves.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
So they were
morality
all
changed over time.
hold on. So if all people and tribes decided that in war, I can take slaves as captive after I've obliterated all the men, what's wrong with that if everyone conceded to the same fact?
Okay, do you want my personal answer?
Well, it's either right or wrong, is it not? Because I'm telling you right now
Well,
that they think it
I
was
can give
fair.
you my subjective answer, and then I can tell you that what they think, what they back them held as moral.
Well, give me your
Okay?
subjective answer.
Okay, I don't think that was moral. I think that was very unfair
Well, how can you say that?
because it's unfair.
But they
Right?
thought it was
Remember?
fair because it was everybody's tribes understood that if you lost, you could be taken as a slave. That is fair because how is one tribe being subjugated to another tribe? Right? Because if this tribe won, then they would be slaves. If this tribe won, they would be slaves. That sounds pretty fair to me. How is one in a better position than the other?
Okay, so the whole idea is from my idea of fairness, right? Remember my questions. That's
Right,
why I
but that
said
seems
from
really
a person's
circular.
idea of fairness.
But
Right?
everyone in that time that you were speaking about in Leviticus thought it was fair. So what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know if everybody thought it was fair. I bet
Well,
you the
how can
slaves probably didn't think it was fair. But
why
I
not?
understand what you're saying that's why I'm saying it's changed over time, dude.
But it didn't change. If it was objectively true that everybody is searching for fairness, it was pretty fucking fair, don't you think? And even
No.
if it changed where everybody automatically
I
said
don't-
it's no longer fair, wouldn't that
That's just
still be?
might makes right.
Oh, it's
I
not
don't
might
think
makes
that-
right. Okay, so again, if might doesn't make right, then how do you value your subjectivity versus someone else's subjectivity?
We'd actually have to debate it.
Well, how would you debate it? Because would you not say
By
that all
actually
wars,
having conversations like we're doing.
right? But historically speaking, how did those debates get settled?
I don't know.
Right? If I had worldview A and you had worldview B, how was that settled?
Like by debating it and finding out which
Oh, they
ideas
weren't
actually
debating,
seem
brother.
better. Which
I can look through history and I can show you the number of debates and I can show you how history won. Right? Every society was
History
created based
won?
off of somebody conquering and teaching their morality to everybody else, right? Creating a new system for the people. Is that not fair? Fair to say? Right? So like when the Muslims come and take over Turkey and they impose their morals and their laws according to the Quran, would you not think that everyone in Turkey would now accept that as morality? Right? Because it's based on the environment, as you said earlier, don't you think?
Yeah, and it didn't really do that much. They had to really threaten the crap out of the people, and now they just lie and say they believe, and a lot of them actually don't.
Right, but you
But there
did
are those
mention,
that do still too.
right, but did you not say earlier that environmental factors are one of the main causes for someone's morality?
Yeah, I think they're main causes for
Okay.
many things.
So regardless of how like if they had to force it on people or not, was that not an environmental factor?
That's an environmental factor, yeah.
Okay, so it's an environmental factor. So then the morality can be changed, right?
Well, yeah, I'm the one who
Okay.
says morals can change. I'm the one
Right.
saying that.
So
Aren't you the
if
guy
that
that's
is the
saying
case,
that they
hold on.
don't?
So is it, hold on. So if it can be changed, right? And then I come in with a different set of morals and I obliterate everyone in power, right? And then I enforce my morality on those people. Can you say that anything I did is wrong?
Yeah, I'd probably still have my own personal position and say, depending on how you did that, right?
Mhm.
If you did it in a horrible way, yeah, I'd probably still call you wrong for that.
So, okay, so basically environmental factors don't determine how somebody feels. Morality works, right?
How did
So
you
how
derive
do we
that from my answer to that question?
because how do we get from environmental factors being someone's personal subjective morals bases on environmental factors? Well, if I change the environment, then their subjective morals would change, and therefore nothing can be neither good nor bad because it just depends on who's in power at the time.
It's not just dependent on who's in power.
So what other factors are there? We're going through the metrics. That's what we're doing right now. What metrics you decide, right, and value compared to somebody else's worldview, right? So if it's the environment, I can change the environment. It sounds a lot like it's just might makes right.
Yeah, like remember what I was saying about I tell when I burn myself, I feel pain. I tell other people
Right.
feel
No,
pain. Right?
I know.
That's
You said
that's environmental factors. You're
right.
not really getting rid of those
But
ones.
the problem with that one, hold on. The problem with that one is, what if I don't feel pain?
Then you're an outlier.
Do I have so I don't have morality?
No, because
I don't feel pain.
I'm not saying that just these two things. That's it. That's morality. There's a whole.
What else is there? I asked
you
what your metrics are, and you said I don't know. So what are your metrics? Is it environmental factors? Is it how
metrics? I told you how I think morals work, right?
So run it down.
An idea of my metrics.
Right. So, but what metrics are there? Is it pain? You already said that it's based off of empathy. Hold on, empathy. Hold on. You said empathy. You said neurons, scientific, right? So if it's neurons firing, and I say, well, what if I don't feel those neurons firing? Right? I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. Neurons. Do I have no morality? No. Okay. So what about empathy? What if I don't feel empathy? Do I have no morals? Can I know right from wrong if I don't have empathy towards an individual?
15-minute warning.
other ways that you can actually tell. It's
What
not-
are they? I asked you for them.
Dude, there's a whole bunch. Okay, you want me to go over every single one that I can think of off the top of my head?
Yes.
You got like
Rattle
the
them off.
ideas of
Rattle
fairness,
them
right?
off. Rattle
The
them off.
ideas of fairness. You got the empathy.
Idea.
You got
Hold
how
on.
you can feel pain. You got how
Yep.
how you can feel the emotional pain of others, right? The suffering,
empathy.
despair. You feel joy.
That's
You
still
can feel
empathy.
fucking many different emotions. that
So
can
it's
give you-
emotional.
well, there's just lots of different ways. You can also do it with
It
reasoning.
sounds like a
right?
whole bunch of I like, I prefer. So if I prefer the complete opposite of yours preferences, right? If I can prefer the complete opposite of your preferences, how can you say anything I do is right or wrong?
Because I have my own preferences.
Okay, but if I prefer differently, right? If I prefer to drown children, as you so weirdly put it in your opening statement, if I prefer to drown that child, what's wrong with me not helping the child?
You're actually going out and murdering somebody.
I didn't. I
Like-
just abstained. What's wrong with me just
Yeah.
abstaining?
I thought you said that you drown a child.
Well, I'm considering drowning a child because my moral obligation is to save because I believe in objective morality. You don't, right? There is no objective truth. So what's wrong with me abstaining from saving the child if I can, to the best of my ability, do such thing?
Because I think that makes you a horrible person.
You think?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with me doing it? Or do you have a metric that says in all
Well, I
instances
think most
it's
of
wrong?
society would agree with
Most
me,
of
don't you?
society-
Like,
so
oh, sorry,
what?
asking questions.
Most of society?
Yeah.
Most of society. So we're going back to Nazis think it's okay to kill Jews, therefore it's okay. They preferred it. They thought it was morally right. What's wrong with that? How can you say that their worldview is wrong at any given state? And then I can go back to what you said earlier because of the golden rule. See, if there is a golden rule, then that means there's objectivity because it would be accepted by all people. So it sounds to me like you actually believe in objectivity, but you just don't like to accept the fact that there is objectivity. Would you agree? Is it wrong to murder a child?
I agree that it's wrong
Okay.
to murder a child.
In any instance, is it wrong to murder a child?
No.
I rest my case. We can go on to the next 15.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, did I say it's objectively wrong to murder a child?
I said in all instances, is it wrong to murder a child? Right? Which would mean there is no outlining parts, right?
Yeah, by definition of the word murder, I would agree with that personally myself.
Okay.
But did I say objective?
That would make it objective, yes. In all instances, there's an objective truth.
I'm
That
just
murdering
thinking for
child is
myself
wrong.
in all instances. What if I'm wrong?
What if you're wrong? I don't know.
What if I'm wrong?
I don't believe in subjectivity. I believe in objectivity. I believe in all instances it's wrong to murder a child.
In all instances, is it okay to own a person's property?
Yeah,
Okay, so you actually endorse slavery?
I endorse whatever is morally
So yes or
given.
no? Do you endorse
Yes.
slavery?
Yeah, I can say yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I concede the rest of my questions. I think it's done right there.
Okay.
Right. I guess to go to the last cross-examination section.
No, that was, and I mean, we're just gonna go in circles again. I would
Yeah.
say, Smoker, do
Okay.
you agree?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. We'll just go on the same last three questions. That's good.
Okay. People in the Discord chat, do you have any questions for the debaters? If you do, just tag me at Anthony Swatman. I don't see anything from them so far.
They're in the side chat, but I don't know if anyone's
Yeah.
tagging you.
Well, I see
No.
people. I see people typing, but I don't. They're probably typing out a question.
We're waiting for questions from you guys.
Yeah, we're waiting for questions.
Oh kid, we're waiting. Yeah.
I can scroll up and see if there's anything.
Yes, it is Q&A.
All right, let's see.
The easiest
For
way to counter this is to say that objectively all unjustified suffering is wrong. I don't think I need to do that either. Clause, do moral facts exist in any capacity independently from human minds?
Well, yes.
I don't think so. Well, no. Independently, you could have other minds. Just any mind. I would not say independent of any mind.
so, question for question for
Yeah, we
Admiral.
don't need to ask that. That's fine, bro. That's not that we're not doing all of that, bro. Come on. I like quotes though, but like for quotes, do moral facts exist in any capacity independently from humans? Like, so within my objective framework, I believe it is entirely based off a subject of moral agency, right? And I think that humanity within the framework of the universe and everything that's created are moral agents. Therefore, that objectivity is true.
Ooh, Admiral Burnt Ham has a question as to what your solution to the Euthyphro dilemma is.
So it's nature and essence. We have a delineation between the nature of God and the essence of God. They're distinct but not indivisible. But ultimately, right, the essence of God is it is active. The nature is the participatory. Therefore, God commands, therefore it's good, versus is it good because God commands it? I mean, I would say if it's a reflection of the nature, it is good, right? It's not really God's commandment and God's will is what makes it good, but the essence is distinct from the nature of God. Therefore, I can say that he is still omnipotent, right? He's omnipotent. Yeah.
Oh, so
Not in French.
I think you're getting confused between the Euthyphro and the Epicurean paradox. The Euthyphro dilemma is asking, is something morally right because God commands it, or does God command it because it is morally right?
Well, I know, and then the next logical point. So if I say God commands it, therefore it is morally good, versus it is morally good because God commands it, right? So if God commands it if God is morally good in all instances, it's good because of God. So therefore, okay, I'm losing my fucking train of thought again. God damn it. It's good because God is good. That is my point, right?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Okid has a question for Smokratees. Is that if you're a materialist, how do you know a mind exists outside of your own?
Yeah, does he mean like a substance dualist, or is he talking like other people's minds?
I think he's talking about other people's minds.
Well, I would say probably from them giving me information that I didn't know before.
If God commanded seppuku is bad, would you agree? And if it then commanded it was good, would you also agree? I don't think God's nature changes. Therefore, killing yourself by seppuku is always bad.
I don't think it's within his nature to change his mind on that.
What pasta carbonara recipe do you use?
Ha ha. I don't like pasta.
Wrong answer.
Anybody else?
Hold on, he's got a transcendental. And how do we know it's the right one? Well, I believe that God is the most logical and most coherent. That would be how I would verify which is the most true God, like ultimate truth, right? So if it's unfalsifiable, that I don't know. I guess that's how I would do it. Well, Milos, within my worldview, is the Christian God.
What workouts and how do you bulk?
I don't actually work out anymore. It's a thing of the past. And honestly, when I did work out, I ate like extremely boring foods, like straight up rice and chicken, pasta plain, like anything. I wasn't looking for anything besides substance. That was just like how I did it. Like no salts, nothing like that. God is all loving and all good. How can the existence of suffering that is unrelated to human free will, such as animal predation, natural disasters, be explained, especially if such suffering existed prior to the first sin? Well, hold on. That's an assumption. I mean, how could you know prior to the first sin? You know, you're making an assertion that you would assume that like lion ate goat prior to the original sin, and like I would just say, how would you even know that to be true?
Another person asks, is even if goodness is grounded in God's natures, our access to it is epistemically human. Also, is something being unfalsifiable just acceptable? I don't really see much of a question in there, just a statement. But
It's not. I mean, yeah. Is it possible that objectivity can be established by normative standards, rules of chess? A married bachelor couldn't be intersubjective coalition rules if they had similar enough beliefs and precepts to form standards invested. Yeah, but what if we had dissimilar, right? You're assuming that just because we have similar beliefs, we can use that as a metric, but like, what if I believe completely the opposite to you? How do you know that anything I do is right or wrong? You can't say anything I do is right or wrong. Right? But then everyone seems to gloss over the fact that we still have a feeling that something is right or wrong. And if you feel that something is right or wrong, regardless of everyone else's preferences, clearly that makes something objective. Yeah, I mean, I did make that statement. I just didn't quote Exodus 21. Is it wrong for someone to exchange their labor? Yeah, I said no. All right, Melly, chill the fuck out.
Tuna, eggs, ham. Burnt Ham asks, if your hand was on a hot stove, would you agree that there are objectively better ways than others to reduce your current pain accessible to you without any metaphysical being?
Well, intuition, right? You call it intuition, but then how do you know that to be true? Wouldn't that make it objective? Right? How could you possibly know that anything is intuitively right or wrong? Because if I intuitively think it's okay to steal, right, what makes it wrong? Would you agree that there are objectively better ways than others to reduce your current pain accessible to you without any metaphysical being? If your hand was on a hostage, yeah, great. I personally can feel pain. But if I do not feel pain, then what is wrong with that? I would just end up burning my hand. So, or like you could even be like, if I see it, therefore it's true, right? If I experience it in the world around me, I must be true. Well, you know, how can I even say that you see the same color I do when I refer to green? Yeah, it's I feel like sexually based on Christian morality. Well, that's the thing, but they don't like to say that, right? And they can't give me a basis. That's why I asked him, like, what is your metric for valuing, you know, anything? You can't, if you don't have a metric, then clearly you just derived it from somewhere, and that's intuitive. But if it's intuitive, I would say that's an objective. If everybody intuitively knows the same thing, that makes objectivity true.
But they don't. That's why it's changed over time.
But it's not true, right? Because if you can decide, if you feel a certain way, right, regardless of the fact of outside environmental factors or whatever factors you want to give, that means that you would always know in every instance that something is true or false, right or wrong. That would make it objective, regardless of my standard, right? Regardless of where I lived on the world, right? It is always wrong to murder a child. Yes or no, regardless of where I live.
Just because you might have a ton of people that agree that red is the best color doesn't mean red is objectively the best color.
Right, but that's why I asked you, is it true in every situation to murder a child is wrong? How could you
from my
possibly say that?
perspective, yes.
Right, but how could you say that if I believe it's not immoral to do that?
Because I have my perspective, just like you have yours. Do you think it's wrong to murder a child?
Right, but I appeal to objective truths, right?
Well,
So
you
regardless,
appeal to
hold
what
on,
you call
regardless,
objective truth.
regardless of how
You
I
never
feel,
really showed how anything was objectively true of what you were saying.
right, but however I feel, regardless of my personal preference, something is still true or false. Even if I wanted to murder children, right? Even if I wanted to murder children, it does not change the fact that no matter what, it is always morally wrong for me to do said thing, regardless of how I feel. So you're under the presupposition that, like, oh well, just because I feel a certain way, it will never change. Well, the problem is if you personally like, if we went long enough and I found something that I would see as you know, abhorrent or something like that, you know, we could go down like a million ways, and then let's take abortion, right? Like, is abortion
How
wrong?
about slavery?
Right, but according to the biblical terms of slavery, right, it's not in reference. So, like, when I say according to the biblical term of slavery at that time, was it objectively wrong? No.
And so and since it wasn't objectively wrong, it's still objectively correct today, right?
Because you can still sell yourself into slavery today. What is wrong with me selling myself into slavery?
I mean, there's actually a lot of laws against it in most nations.
Right, but does that make it immoral? It's for me to sell myself into slavery.
I mean, I personally, if you are agreeing to it, I'm fine with it.
Right. So it's
But
just based
there
on
might be
subsidy.
people that disagree with that. That's probably why they have laws against it.
Yeah,
If
but
you,
does-
if
oh wait, hold
the
on.
whole
If
thing is,
law,
how many people do you think agree with slavery now?
if
Should we
I
bring
don't
it back?
hold
Do
on,
you think we should
I
bring
don't,
slavery back?
brother, I don't appeal to populism. I don't care what the populace thinks. It's not how I base my morality. It is either right or wrong, regardless of how many people think it's right or wrong. So
Yeah.
if within the
So a
society,
bunch
right,
of people think slavery is wrong, but you don't,
right,
right?
but what if right now we have a birth rate problem, right? Let's say it falls to 0.02%, right? And we are on the verge of extinction. Is it morally wrong for me to cage all women and use them to reproduce for the next generation?
No.
No, right. So
No.
is it wrong to rape children, rape women?
Yeah, I would say so.
I just want
Oh,
to
okay.
preface this is going on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry. My bad. My bad.
it's all good, all good. So yeah, like
Preface.
yeah,
That was
grape, grape, unalive. Yeah,
Yeah, but again, when they would sell their slaves, like their daughters as slaves, right? If I couldn't possibly take care of my children, right? If I was poor, if I couldn't feed them, what would morally be wrong about me making that action so that my children were able to live out their lives instead of dying on the fucking dirt?
Sure, but there's people, like, the reason that it's, you may buy slaves from the nations around you, other people went and kidnapped these people and are selling them as slaves to you.
Yeah, but did I,
You
right?
You get to hand them down as property for
right?
life.
But who has the moral ought in that world?
I would say everybody involved in that.
Right.
Obviously,
So,
the people buying
if
it
I don't,
endorse the trade going on, right? If nobody
Right.
was buying them, then it would stop.
but if I'm okay, so if the moral ought is that I do not steal and kidnap people, right? Right. But somebody else does it, and they aren't one of God's people that don't have this moral ought. There's literally nothing wrong with that person doing that, with kidnapping, right? But for the Hebrews, it was wrong to kidnap, right? So then I can ask you this, right? What is wrong as a Hebrew who the best case scenario for this person who was kidnapped into slavery, right? The best case scenario is that they would be purchased into a Hebrew family because they would have the right to freedom after a certain length of time. They would be fed, they would be treated well, they would do all of these things, right? But every other worldview would not do that. They just kill them. They could have eaten them. They could have done X, Y, and Z. So for the slave, do you not think it would be better for them to be purchased by someone who had moral oughts of protection for the slaves?
Dude,
Would it not
whatever
be a
way you
kindness?
want to
Would it not be,
justify
hold on,
slavery, go
would it
for
be
it,
a
dude.
kindness? Would it be a kindness for me to purchase, right? So even in America, we can find it in American times, right? With
Sure,
like
you can
black
have
slaves,
some
right?
people that you enslaved that ended up with a better life after being enslaved, but
Right. So is
still
it
don't think
always
that's
inherently
justifying
wrong? Hold
all
on.
the slavery that happened, dude.
If
This is pretty
if
wild.
if you lived in the 1800s, right, and you had money, right, and you went down to the slave market and you purchased a slave, right, and you gave them a better life than anyone else was going to, right, and then you freed them from slavery after a set number of years, right,
They only
would
freed
you not be
Hebrew
a good
slaves.
person? Yeah, but they
They
were
didn't have
also
to do
made
that with the other
Hebrew.
ones.
They were also made Hebrew. You're forgetting that fact, right? They were included into the tribe. They were asked at the end if they would like to become peoples of Israelite or Israel, right? What happened to that part of it? Where they were even given a choice to become nationalized. If they refused, then they would remain slaves. If they did not refuse, then they'd be freed.
Oh yeah, that's great. It sounds pretty forced, you know.
No, that's no. How is that force? You get the choice. That is like the
Oh,
opposite of force.
hey, you could be my slave for life, or after 7 years, you could say that you agree with my belief system, and then I'll let you go. You don't think there's a little bit of coercion in that?
Okay, so even in that sense, what's wrong with that, right? Because no one else
Dude,
was
you
giving
keep
them
doing
that
this. Okay,
option.
what do you seriously? this answering of my questions
Yes,
with a question.
right, but hold
What's
on. Here's the
wrong with
problem.
that?
Here's the
Dude,
problem, right?
Give me your
No,
perspective.
here's the
You
problem.
tell me
You
what is
prefer,
wrong with that.
you prefer that I would say an X, Y, and thing, right? You prefer that I say X, Y, and Z, right? I'm saying I can say whatever the fuck I want. You don't even get a right to be mad at the way I say it because it's not objectively true.
Right.
How can you even be
I don't have an
abhorrent to my
opinion.
answer to anything?
Apparently, neither do
I'm
do
telling you,
'cause
I
can't even
prefer.
really answer many of the questions
brother,
that I asked.
Or have you not realized, right? The funniest part about this is that you find what I'm saying to be abhorrent, right? How can you claim that it's abhorrent if it's subjective truth? That
'Cause
would
it
seem
seems
like you're
pretty
conceding the
horribly
fact. It's
unfair
concede like,
to
how
be
would you?
defending slavery today.
By whose standard? Yours or mine?
By mine, by most people
So
in
what's
the
wrong?
world.
What's wrong with me saying there's anything wrong?
Okay, so you don't agree there's anything wrong with slavery,
Right. So falsify it. Falsify it. Show me that it's wrong.
I've said this many times about the fairness involved in it, right?
Right, but I'm
Remember the fairness questions?
disregarding your fairness entirely. I'm
Yeah,
disregarding it. I
it's
don't
funny how
care.
you just
right?
disregard everything that you need
No,
to when
No,
you don't
that's
want to
how.
answer.
Wait, hold on. No. I don't think you understand what's happening here, right? You're trying to value your moral truths, right, of subjective morality, and trying to say that my morality is bad, but you can't because I'm just going to disregard all things you say because it's my preference. So how can you
Yeah,
say
your
anything I
preference
do?
is just to
Wait,
say,
wait, wait.
well, how do you know it's bad? Well, how
Right.
do you know that's bad? Well, how do you
Smoker
know
rates.
that's
Do
bad?
you understand what's
It's not
happening
really
here?
much of a preference, is it? When I'm
How
asking you, do you think it's
show me?
bad?
How can you show me that anything I do and say is wrong? How can you show me anything I do and say is wrong if it's based on subjectivity? I disregard all metrics you say. All metrics. What's wrong then?
Because
Can you concede to the fact that you literally can't tell me there's anything wrong with owning
I
slaves?
guess I can't even answer the question because you won't even let me talk then. Oh, you're gonna stop now for a second?
I'm waiting for you to answer, dude.
Okay. Because I think the unfairness involved in it and the other factors that would make me say that is not moral.
Great.
Okay.
And I
Did
say
you
I
listen that time?
disregard. And I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
I
and you just
disregard,
disregard everything
right?
about
So
empathy
no,
and fairness, and you
Smoker
just
rate.
say, fuck all
Smoker rate.
that. I don't care.
Can you have a debate on something hypothetical for a second, right? You're having a worldview that says it's wrong. I'm saying it's right. I disregard all metrics and values you have entirely because I don't prefer those metrics. How can you say that my view of owning slaves is wrong?
From the unfairness, I feel.
Oh, so is unfairness
about it.
objective? Is
Oh
that
my
objective
God.
truth?
No, it's my subjective opinion,
Right.
right?
So you
The
can't even say,
unfairness I feel about it, right? You
right?
understand that statement?
I understand that you feel a certain thing. I'm saying I feel the
Yeah.
complete opposite.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
can
You feel like
say
slavery is okay because
how
God
can
told you
you
it was.
say how can you say that anything I say is wrong? If I feel A and you feel B and they're complete opposites, you can't say anything about how I do live my life. So you can't
Okay.
give me a moral ought. You literally can't tell me to do X, Y, and Z because I prefer completely different set of metrics, completely different from your worldview. So how can you give me an ought?
I guess I can't. Now, how do you do it?
Because I drive all morality from an objective truth that is God.
No,
That
I disagree.
way, no matter.
I disagree
but
with
no
you. I just
matter.
don't believe that.
Right. You can disagree and you can say whatever you'd like to feel.
Oh,
But
there
the
we
problem
go.
is, right? No matter how I feel about a situation, it makes it true or false. It's a true or false statement in every worldview. It doesn't matter if I live in Soviet Russia. It doesn't matter if I live in freaking South Africa. It doesn't matter. The truth is always going to be the truth, regardless of how I feel, regardless of my position in life, regardless of my environment. It doesn't matter. It's always wrong, right, to kidnap and sell into slavery.
No, but what if they're already owned into slavery? Is it
Right,
legal to buy them?
But hold on.
Is it
I
legal to beat your slave as long as they're
who's
okay within a day or two?
who's the moral agent,
Hey, I asked
right?
you a couple questions here.
Who's giving the ought? Who said that it's
See, you keep doing this. You keep doing this. You keep avoiding my questions with questions.
no? Actually, I'm not, because here's the
Really?
problem, right? Who said, right? So if you
Are you
say
allowed to buy slaves, Admiral?
yes, why?
Okay. Are you allowed to beat your slave as long as they're okay within a day or two?
Can you show me that?
Well, it says it in the Bible. There is verses
Then
for this.
yes. If you show me within the Bible,
Okay,
then I say
okay.
yes, right? But it also says that I have to give them a better life. I also have to give them the option to free themselves, right?
Sure.
So in the worldview of that time, where their options for the slave, right, was to be owned by a Hebrew who's going to treat them right and give them a chance of freedom, versus any other tribe who's never going to do that thing, potentially just going to do X, Y, and Z forever and ever and ever. They have no rights, right? What's wrong with that? It's a moral ought for the time. You understand that? So at that time, it was happening everywhere. So this is how the people of Israel ought live in this time. It's going to happen, right? How are we going to deal with it?
Well, I think there'd be other ways, especially if God could do anything. I mean, totally didn't need to have these people starving and shit. He could have provided food for them, couldn't he?
Wait, hold on. Would you
Houses?
prefer that? Would you prefer that God chose not to starve children?
Yeah.
Well,
Would
I
I
don't
prefer
care
no
about your
people
preference.
starved? Yeah,
I
dude.
love your
What are you
preference,
talking
man.
about?
But I prefer that God did.
Wow.
Why? Because
Okay.
why? Because it gives me it gives me a reason to appreciate God, dude. Right? How can I know joy without
God
pain?
starving children gives you a
Hold
way
on.
to appreciate
God
God.
is not an active participant in the starvation of children, is he?
Can he feed the children?
Hold on. That's an ought from an is.
No, it's a question.
Yeah, which is deriving an ought from an is. God is, right?
No,
He
no,
ought
it's a
not
simple
do
question.
anything.
Does God have the ability to feed them? Could he feed us all?
He could, but why should he?
Well, there we go.
Why should he?
Hey, I'm not saying that he should. I think he should.
So
It's just what I'm saying.
why?
I'm not
Because you would
saying that
prefer.
he objectively should. Maybe he's
Do
got
you
better
know?
reasons than I do,
Hold
right?
on. So hold on. So if God did do that, right? Would you have free will?
Yeah.
Why would you have free will if God does everything for you?
Because it's actually hard to take away free will. Just because somebody
Right.
does something
But
for
hold
me
on,
doesn't mean I lose free
hold
will.
on. So if God was to intercede in every single instance of somebody starving and somebody dying, right? Any of those things, right? Would man have free will? Would we have the ability to choose anything?
We'd still have free will.
How?
You're conflating freedom and free will. I could put you in prison and deny you any freedoms, but you still are acting on your own volition. You did not
No,
lose
you're
free
not.
will from that. Really?
No,
You think
you don't.
prisoners all lost free will?
Yeah. Because
Really?
listen, how come, right?
Hmm.
So why is it a big deal when Epstein hangs himself in prison? How is that the ability? Why? Because we always ask, well, how did he do that, right? Somebody should have been watching him at all times, right? Because we're supposed to take the free will away from them, where they even get the will to kill themselves is taken. If they stop eating in prison, do you know what happens? They force feed you. You don't get free will in prison. They take free will from you forcefully.
Why do they have to force feed you when you don't
Because
have free
if you
will?
go on a hunger strike in prison, they force feed you.
Because
Therefore,
are
they
you
don't have
resisting
free
them doing
will.
it?
Yes, dude. It's
So
because
what's
that's
resist? Is that not your will
because
to resist them?
right, but you don't get that ultimately, even if you have the will to stop eating, it is taken from you by force feeding. Do you understand that? So no matter how much you decide not to eat, you will be fed.
Dude, I don't think you understand what free will is, honestly. If you think that
Okay, define free
putting a
will.
person in prison takes away free will and force feeding them shows that you can't take away their
So
free
hold on.
will that easy.
No,
You have to
listen,
override their minds so they're not controlling themselves anymore.
No. They're not
No?
controlling themselves. Why? Because if they choose to stop eating, is that a choice? Yes. Ready? What is the choice when I say I'm going to stop eating? I'm going to starve myself to death, right? So if I prevent the starvation until death, did you get to act your free will? No, because your free will is to starve yourself until death. And I continuously force feed you. Therefore, you don't have free will.
No. See, I would say freedoms. I didn't have the freedom not to eat. They took that from me. They took me that freedom. I still control myself,
Hold
though.
on.
They
Would you
have to
say
force
freedom
feed me because I'm still in control of myself.
So is freedom the ability to choose, or the action of choosing makes it free will?
Freedom is being free of constraints of law and everything.
Okay, so there's a difference between freedom and free will, right?
Yeah.
What is free will? Define free will.
Free will is you're able to act on your own will.
Right.
Your
So if
will
your
is what
act,
motivates you.
right, you will to die, I prevent it. Are you a free will?
You still have that will to die.
But you
Don't
can't
you?
die because I will keep force feeding you. Therefore, you don't have free will.
No, that's freedom.
Oh shit. Smoke not smokes, but okay. Deal with that later.
What happened?
You don't have the freedom to die, but the free will, like to take away somebody's free will is like putting electrodes in their head and controlling them like a robot.
Right, we did
That's
that
why
too.
Frank Turek is always saying, are we just moist robots, like no free will?
Okay, so do I have free will in all instances of life?
Yeah, I assume so.
Okay, so what do I have free will over right now?
Yourself.
Okay,
Your comments you're making, the things that you're doing right now.
right. So if I decide to kill somebody right now, what's wrong with that? Do I have free will or not?
Yeah.
Oh,
What-
so I
what
can.
was-
So is morality based on my free will? Like, is it immoral to have free will? Is it
No.
immoral not to take action? Is it immoral to do any of those things? No. No, you can't say that it's immoral for me not to kill someone because I have free will. So why do you prescribe that on God?
Where did we make this leap back into the morality
so
out of
if
the free will
just
thing
because
there?
God can do X, Y, and Z, why should he ought do X, Y, and Z? Can you make that connection now? Just because I have the
Okay.
ability to do something, why should I do anything? Why?
Okay, well, back to what my questions was the objective moral duty to save a drowning person, right?
No, you're making an objective moral. It's for the moral agent, yes.
Yeah, but then we just get back into, is God a moral agent?
No, he's not.
Yeah, and see, I disagree with you.
Right, but you can disagree, but you have to argue from my worldview. Show me within my worldview that God is a moral agent.
Well, that's like saying, show me from my worldview that God exists.
Right, because you prefer X, Y, and Z. Your entire world is based off of I prefer.
No,
You
dude,
can't
my
prefer. You
critique
literally can't
came
prefer
from
my
your
worldview.
own answers to my questions. Drowning person. I wasn't using my morality. I was using yours.
Right. But why God should ought do anything? Why should God ought save drowning person? Just because you prefer it doesn't make it a moral action or an immoral action.
I'm not saying because I prefer it. You guys say this is an objective moral duty.
For a moral agent.
Did you not say that it is an objective moral duty to save a drowning person if you can with no risk to yourself?
For a moral agent.
For a moral agent, yes. Now, I think God is a moral agent.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense to say he's not a moral agent.
Not in a Christian worldview.
Really? How many Christians are
outside.
saying that God is not a moral agent?
Well, actually, here's a better question. Find me any Christian that thinks that God is a moral agent.
Okay.
Right? Because you're presupposing, right? You're presupposing and straw manning the Christian worldview, saying that God is a moral agent. I'm saying he's not. But instead of accepting the fact that God is not a moral agent within any of the Christian worldviews, including non-Christian entities, including Aristotle, who thinks that the creator of anything cannot be a moral agent of the created. Right? Because philosophically, it doesn't make any sense. Right? But you're going to automatically presuppose on any worldview because you have the idea in your world that says, oh, if I create something, I must also be obligated of the thing I created, right? So how is that a thing? Because I could show
my
you
whole
through.
thing is
I could.
because it used the word the definition objective. I said he could go ahead and do all this and just say
Yes, within
divine
the
command
framework
theory,
of the
and it would
universe.
just be fine. You get rid of this problem entirely.
No, because in the divine command theory, then you're going to go on to say, like, and this is why you like this answer, right? Why don't you tell me why you like divine command theory?
What?
Because
I don't
then
have a
it
problem
makes
with divine
God.
command theory. I
But
argue for
well,
divine command theory.
so hold on. How could you do divine command theory if you don't even believe in objectivity?
Because I don't think divine command theory is objective. I
So
don't
it's
think those are the
only
same thing.
hold on. So it's only good if God commands it, right?
That's what divine command theory is. Yeah.
Right. So what if he doesn't command X, Y, and Z? Right? Does that mean it's not morally good?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No.
So God literally has to rattle off every single instance, right, of whether something would be moral or immoral, which means that there is no free will within the divine command theory.
I don't know if there is or not. That was my answer. Why would you
Right.
treat that like it said no?
Because you just like the idea that divine command theory gives an easy, simple option. The problem with divine command theory is now it's basically determinism or predestination, dude. Right? Because every moral ought would have to be specified by God. Right? Which means there is no free will.
Okay, so doesn't that have to happen with objective morality as well? I mean, that is what you basically have is divine command theory. If you need more than that, then where are you getting that?
Essence and logi, right? Essence, nature.
Where does that come from?
Well, through divine revelation, we understand things that of the essence, which is incomprehensible, right? We see the nature through divine revelation, right?
So your own intuitions are telling you kind of thing?
No, it's not. It's divine revelation. I didn't say intuition at all, did I?
Revelations in what? The book?
Divine revelation.
Just through you, from God?
No.
Where is it coming from?
From God, not to me, right? It's independent of me.
Okay, how do you know it? Where do you know it from?
Sorry, I hate to cut this side of the discussion a bit short, but I have people in the Discord who do want to get up, so I'm probably going to open up an after show stage to get people up and discussing this. But as for the I guess you say formal debate, do you guys want to make any concluding statements or anything? I'll let Smokratees go first if you would like to.
Yeah, I don't see how we've seen that morals are objective and from God out of this. I didn't see any evidence of that. The whole thing started off with it being he's inside and outside. He doesn't have to do them because he's outside, but he's inside, and everything was very confusing throughout this. And then with the whole slavery being objectively moral thing, I think that was a pretty bad look.
You good?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I find it very interesting that we can, subjectively think that there is any immoral action, right? And if we change the environment or change any of the metrics he chooses, the morality doesn't change. That would sound a lot like objective morality, right? It's independent of all things around it because it's always immoral to murder a child. Yeah, that sounds objective to me, but that's what we got.
All right. It was nice getting the debate up with y'all. I'll if any of you guys want to check this out after the fact, I'll plug my YouTube. A shameless plug. I'll do a shameless plug in the in the after show. Well, this concludes the debate.